Hi, and welcome back to DDA on F1, where today we're going to be doing a little analysis of the 70th anniversary Grand Prix held at Silverstone. Before I get into those talking points, I'd like to say a big congratulations to Max Verstappen and the Red Bull racing team for what was a masterful race, a masterful qualifying session, and just an overall wonderful weekend for them. So congratulations to you guys. I myself am part of the grandma driving contingent, and so watching Max go that quickly was awesome. Before I get into the analysis and my reaction to the race, I have a Twitter account at DDA on F1 where I tweet or retweet stuff that I find interesting during the build-up and during the race, all about all the cars on the field, hopefully. And so please remember to follow me there as well so you can get more of wonderful me. I made some bold predictions, and none of them panned out. So you might find that pretty humorous. I'll put some here. It didn't really, no, it didn't work out for me there. But I find it fun to try to predict stuff before the race. So yeah. My first talking point. Pirelli, if you're watching this, please always bring the wrong tires to a Grand Prix. Just do it. The kind of action that we saw, the teams having to rethink their strategies and be more meticulous and getting to know their weaknesses of their cars as well as their strengths, was fantastic to see. Free practice, all of them. I watched all of them and they were very interesting to see the different cars handling the situations in the way that they could according to the characteristics of their cars. And it was no different in qualifying. Watching Max go on a different strategy than everybody else that early was great to see, and it made us really anticipate, or at least look forward to, what was going to happen in the race. Great for the spectacle of Formula One. And then, of course, in the race, watching the Mercedes chew their tires was unexpected, was good for the entertainment value, and it served some very good surprises in the sport. And so massive thank you, believe it or not, to Pirelli for making the sport a little bit more interesting and making teams have a harder time figuring things out. It's what the sport needs, and it leads to really amazing spectacles, amazing moments in the races, and gives you very interesting results. So Pirelli, thank you. For you F1 fans that are trying to understand more about the sport, this is the kind of thing that makes it more fun to watch, and it gets more audiences watching the sport. And that's, to me, is what F1 really needs right now, especially because all of the fans can't even make it to the races anymore. So to see the race not proceed in the way you thought it was going to, or in the way that it would have in the past, because if Ferrari had brought the right tires, you better believe Mercedes would have just run away with it. And just to see this happening the way it did, watching this race unfold the way that it did, was very entertaining. So thank you. Point number 2. I don't think Mercedes lost this race as much as it was Red Bull going out and winning it. If you're a Mercedes fan, understand that these are the kinds of races, finishing second and third, that lead to constructors' championships. You can't win every single race. That doesn't happen. And so for your team, don't look at it as Mercedes losing the race. Red Bull, and hats off to Red Bull, because they did a phenomenal job seeing into the future, basically. In qualifying, I don't know if you guys remember, but Max ran the fewest laps of basically anybody, because he had to conserve his tires so that on Sunday he had good sets of tires ready to go. And that's exactly what happened. Red Bull called the strategy early, they called it well, and they were fluid in their strategy. When Max pitted for his medium tires, they weren't supposed to pit to the mediums. They were actually supposed to pit, according to the plan, to pit on the hards, but they saw what was happening. They saw what they wanted to achieve, and they made a strategic shift. A very fluid, very spot on, a very in the moment decision. Decisions which other teams like Ferrari are incapable of. Thinking on their feet like that, Mercedes are good at that, and so is Red Bull, and we saw that today. And so, again, a big congratulations to Max for going out there and seizing the day. Obviously, on the radio, we all heard him talking about going out there and just trying to get it, trying to go after the Mercedes, and that's what we want to see in the sport. And given the proper car, as everybody keeps saying, given the proper car, Max is a future world champion. He is phenomenally quick, and something that I don't know if I have enough time here, but I really need you to understand Max's driving style. Max is very kind on his tires, and Red Bulls have historically been very good with their tires. We've all seen Max be very aggressive in his passing, but Max, if you actually watch his steering inputs, the way he turns in, the way he holds the load on the tires through the corners, Max is actually very, very conservative with the way he drives his car, and it led to him being able to maximize his hard tires and even his mediums. Yes, he only ran about 10 laps on his mediums, but that's all he needed. The clever strategy from Red Bull, Max's amazing driving style, his ability to just make those tires last and to maximize what the car was giving him. Huge congratulations to Red Bull. And again, I just want to say it one more time. Mercedes did not lose this race. Max and Red Bull went and won it. And that's very important to keep in mind. Point number 3. I don't talk about Ferrari on these videos very often because I am a tifosi. I am a Ferrari supporter, and I have been since 97, 98. So I don't like to talk about the team that I support a lot because I don't think it's fair to you guys to rob you of information from other teams and other parts of the sport, other parts of the grid, because it's my thing to talk about Ferrari. But I really think we need to talk about Charles Leclerc. He said in his post-race interview that the thing he learned from last year that he wanted to work on this year was his tire management. And I think for someone who is 22 years old, to be that level-headed, that grounded, to work on his weaknesses, to soldier through with a struggling car and bring the car home in fourth, was not only a brave thing to do given the explosions that we had last weekend with harder tires, but also just a brilliant performance overall by his side of the garage, as they say in British TV. I think it was not expected for Ferrari to bring home a car in fourth place. When I first heard Sebastian's radio message to the team about how they made the wrong strategy call, I felt like that was a bit rich coming from Sebastian. He would have been in a different situation if in the first turn he hadn't spun. So I was upset with that at first, but then listening to him and seeing what actually happened, Sebastian was not complaining about his hard tires. He was happily cruising along and he was good, and Ferrari forced a pit stop onto mediums and ran him on 18 laps in the mediums into traffic. And that's the kind of poor strategic calls that Ferrari makes, because they come up with the plan on Saturday, they say this is what we're gonna do, and on race day they don't fluctuate, they don't stay fluid, they don't think on their feet. They just say, this is what we planned, this is what we're gonna do, and we're gonna go for it. With Charles, it was, we're gonna do a one-stop with Charles, and it worked. And I can see why that was a strategic call and the insistence of the team to stick to Charles. But with Sebastian, play it fluid, man. The situation changed from what you thought was gonna happen. No one could have predicted that one of the Ferrari drivers was gonna spin on the first lap. Although with Sebastian and his recent fortunes, spinning is pretty run-of-the-mill for him. But seeing how Ferrari didn't adjust that strategy and they just went with what they were going to do in spite of the evidence in front of them and their driver, who last week saved their butts, in Hungary, saved their butts with a good strategic call that Ferrari wasn't going to make. And this time they didn't listen to him and they just went ahead and pitted him. That just shows that Ferrari need to work on their strategic calls. They need to work on thinking on their feet. While Charles outperformed what the car was able to do, I think Ferrari could have extracted more with Sebastian, even though Sebastian didn't help himself. So, yeah. Point number 4. I don't understand exactly what happened with Renault and McLaren, but those boys faded. They faded hard. When I saw that Charles came out behind Lando, I thought, okay, well, that sucks for Charles. This is going to be a long race. I thought Lando had the pace, but McLaren just faded. The tire degradation really, like Mercedes, didn't work in their favor. And Renault, I mean, I don't think I remember the last time I've seen Daniel Ricciardo just spin like that. I'm sure it's happened before, but it's a rare thing to see for him to make a mistake like that. So I'm sure that the Renault boys were up against a wall, as well as McLaren with that tire degradation, not really playing in their favor to the characteristics of their car. And again, just goes to show how those tires really mix up the action in F1. We're going to Barcelona next for those two teams. Well, everybody's going to Barcelona next, so we'll see what happens with them there. They'll be able to predict better what's going to happen. They have a lot of data about what the car does around that track because they test there during winter testing, for those that don't know. So yeah, it was a bit weird. It was a bit weird seeing them fade like that, but I guess that's what happens. I don't mean to plug yet the same video again, but I think point number 5, Nico Hulkenberg is criminally underrated. For him to have the insight, the adaptability, the quickness, the ability to put that car on P3, which, yes, granted, it's a good car over one lap. But for him to be able to do that, I know that the race pace wasn't really there. The degradation really played against them. But to see him come in, let's put it this way. Everybody was crying for Esteban Ocon to get a Formula 1 race seat when he lost his race seat with Racing Point. And I understand the frustration with that. And now Esteban Ocon took a racing seat in F1, took Nico Hulkenberg's. But I think it's important to realize that even though Nico Hulkenberg may not be able to bring as much financially to a team, he is an experienced driver with wonderful credentials. I know he hasn't finished on a podium, but the guy is quick, he's smart, he knows what to do, he knows how to get on with it. And for teams that need that kind of driver, that kind of presence in the garage, like Haas, because you have Romain Grosjean doing all kinds of stuff, I think it's important to remember the quality that Nico Hulkenberg can bring. And I think it's a greater travesty that he doesn't have a seat than that Esteban Ocon didn't. I know that the Netflix series really got everybody on the Ocon train, and I am too. But man, seeing him achieve what he achieved coming back in after not even being in the sport, you could even see in his qualifying lap, Paul Di Resta was mentioning how he could tell that Nico was resting his neck muscles through the slower parts of the track because, you know, the demands of an F1 car, especially when you're not in the perfect shape to take on an F1 season like he was, it was just smart things to do to keep himself focused and able in the high-speed sections, which, if you saw the graphics, the Amazon AWS graphics, the cars through Maggots and Beckett's are pulling between 4 and 5.5 Gs. That's 4 or 5.5 times your body weight going against you in the opposite direction that you're going. So think about that for a second. I mean, for him to do what he did, I think it's a great job. And I think that Sergio Perez, that's the driver for Racing Point right now. That's the one that needs to be racing for them. But man, what a performance. Preview for Barcelona. I think Barcelona, we have to wait until we understand exactly what's happening with the tires. the allotment, because that played a huge factor, and the compounds played a huge factor in today's race. But with Barcelona, teams have a lot more data to go off of to make their decisions. They raced there, they practiced, they did testing there for weeks, in February. And so it's going to be interesting to watch. Hopefully the Pirelli compounds will, again, aid in the drama of the race. But I do expect Mercedes to be at the head of the field again, even in the race, because there's so many different things that Mercedes are doing right. And I think for Mercedes fans, which I'm not one, but for Mercedes fans, keep your chin up. Second and third place, that's what happens sometimes. And I expect to see Red Bull challenging Mercedes, but not the way they did this weekend. With that, I want to thank you for sticking through this video. It really helps me that you guys watch the entire video for YouTube purposes. If you found anything that I said interesting, and if you'd like to see more of it, please remember to like and subscribe. Click that notification bell down here. Is it here? I can never think spatially like that. Comment. Tell me what your favorite moments of the race were. What are your thoughts on the race? And I'd love to hear it. And I can't wait to see you guys and gals at the Spanish Grand Prix this coming weekend. All right. Mwah. Bye-bye.